Welcome to another episode of Divorce TV, and if you are a parent, a co-parent, this is going to be a especially useful show for you, because I'm interviewing the head of the UK arm of Our Family Wizard, who you're going to find all about very shortly after we've had the news. And of course we've got another amazing healing. We've got Marion who's back with us, so get yourself ready to finish off feeling calm and peaceful. But let's just get straight into the news. So our first news story tonight is from the local FR, and it's about the divorce law pitfalls in France that foreigners need to be aware of. So if you're thinking of marrying a Frenchman or divorcing a Frenchman or a French lady, or you have one of those sort of international sort of marriages where you move all over the place, this might be something you need to know about. Now, we brought this up a few weeks back about how there's a really easy, quick way to get through divorce in France, but apparently there's a downside according to one of the lawyers. The divorce law pitfalls in France are that they've now got this out-of-court divorce option designed to make the process simpler and less expensive. But as a Paris-based lawyer warns, it has some pitfalls for non-French people. Now, on January the 1st, 2017, the divorce par consentement mutuel, divorce by mutual consent, was created, allowing couples to acknowledge their consent to divorce in an extrajudicial contract without a court proceeding. Sounds great, doesn't it? So divorce by mutual consent is essential that couples agree on all aspects of their divorce with the help of their respective lawyers. They especially need to settle the consequences of the divorce on their children, custody and residence, and on their assets and all financial measures, alimony and compensatory allowance. Now, the consent reached by the couple is then set out in a divorce agreement prepared by the parties' lawyers. Following a 15-day cooling off period, the divorce agreement is signed by the spouses and countersigned by each lawyer. Once signed, the agreement is submitted to a French notaire for registration. Registration is what makes the divorce agreement enforceable in France. So it all sounds perfect so far. Signing a divorce agreement is the quickest way to divorce in France. But whilst the duration clearly depends on how the negotiations between the couple progress, it's technically possible to sign and register a divorce agreement in France within approximately 1 month. Right, so it sounds better and better. So you can sign a divorce agreement even if you're not French. However, you must have a sufficient connection to France based on your habitual residence or on your spouse's French nationality. International couples should, however, be very careful when signing a divorce agreement, as not all countries recognise this type of divorce. As the divorce agreement is entered into out of court, except when a minor child requests to be heard in court, public authorities from certain countries do not recognise and enforce this type of divorce. This is, for instance, the case in certain states in the USA. So in practice, this means that a couple having signed and registered a French divorce agreement would be considered as divorced in France, however still be married in their home country or countries if local authorities refuse to register and enforce the contract. Enforcing a divorce agreement outside of France could also be problematic for expats who move countries on a regular basis. Should the French out-of-court divorce not be recognised by the authorities in your country, they advise, or should it not be appropriate, it will be necessary to take the matter to court. So that's what happens when you try to use lawyers to do the whole thing, instead of mediators who can draw up a memorandum of understanding that's turned into a legally binding consent order, that would be the terminology here in the UK, or using collaborative lawyers. Now in France, I happen to know that the AFPDC was created in 2009 to develop and implement collaborative practice in France. That's where you get lawyers, but you don't go to court. And obviously they have mediation there as well. But unfortunately, they didn't mention that as options in the article. Our next story comes from the Trethowan's law firm blog. Now, they're talking about a landmark divorce ruling, we like these, which gives peace of mind to stay-at-home parents. So, separated spouses who give up a career to bring up their children and support the other to work, leaving them without a pension, can be comforted, it says, now that they will be protected on divorce. Well, to be honest, I thought that actually that tends to be what happens in practice anyway, but let's continue. In a landmark divorce ruling, the family team at Trethowens won their client an equal share of pension incomes totalling more than £2.3 million. The judgment in W versus H, Divorce Financial Remedies, 2020 EWFCB 10, trumps needs over financial contribution to a marriage, meaning it is a win for those who give up their careers in a marriage in order to raise children. The ruling will give comfort to separated spouses who have been left without a pension after giving up work to raise their family, as they will now be protected on divorce. Well, that might be a bit of exaggeration because they tended to be anyway, but the fact that it is now fully enshrined in law through this landmark case is a very, very good thing. Emma Wilders Pratt, partner at the family, Emma Wilders Pratt, partner of the family division at Trethowens, who had conduct of the case, said, pensions can be complex in a divorce. They are not always distributed evenly. Last year's report of the Pension Advisory Group aimed to achieve better common understanding and consistency when it comes to dealing with pensions in divorce and improve the fairness of outcomes for all parties. This ruling is the first to follow its recommendations and clarifies the approach that courts should, yet often did not, take when it comes to distributing pensions in a divorce. As such, it is likely to set a precedent for future cases. There were 4 pension schemes in the case, two were held by the husband, totalling just over £2.2 million, and 2 held by the wife, amounting to almost £153,000. The wife sought an order providing for equality of pension income. The husband sought to exclude pension accrued prior to the marriage from the settlement. Now, this is important because technically you didn't always have to take into account the pension that came before they got married, though in practice it was often just split in half. But this is really important. This is genuinely a step forward in making things clearer, shall we say, and to have less disparity in judges' decisions, for example, in courts. So the judge, J. Hess, acknowledged that there was no one-size-fits-all approach to distributing pensions in divorce cases, but concluded that equal sharing of pension income to meet need was the fairest outcome in this case. The judge also reinforced the report's view that on offset, whereby one spouse receives a lump sum instead of a pension, this should be avoided if at all possible. Since this ruling, there's been a significant focus on this case, Emma Wilders Pratt comments. This is relevant to every case which involves distribution of pensions, and it is cited frequently. It is one step nearer clarity for clients and the legal profession, and peace of mind for the spouse who gives up their careers for the benefit of the family and are left without a pension as a result. And so be aware, all of those of you who are not legally married, this only applies to people who have been in a marriage. You won't have this protection in the UK. I believe you also don't have it in California either if you are cohabiting, so be warned. And the last story is Russell Howard paid sister Kerry's divorce legal fees. So actress and writer Kerry Howard has opened up about her divorce and the amazing support her brother comedian Russell gave in the difficult times. The Him and Her star shared the love for her supportive family as she chatted to Samantha Baines for her podcast The Divorce Club. Weirdly, it's very supportive, she said of her family, adding, "We are quite guarded, but then also a very open family at the same time. Russell was amazing because at the very beginning, my mum and Russell were doing a travel show in India and I was living with my mum at the time. And she said to me, 'Whatever you do, don't do anything.' And the next day she was at the airport and I called her and said, 'I've left him. And she's like, 'What?' Kerry, 38, recalled calling Russell, 40, adding, 'Then about 10 minutes later I got a call from his personal assistant, who's beautiful, and she just said, "We have a solicitor for you. Russell's paying for the bills. Don't worry about that. I'll give her your email and we'll get things started." Probably about 6 months into that, I then gathered myself and said, "I love that you're doing this for me, but I need to now pay for my legal fees. I need to do that," she continued. And he allowed me to take it over because he would have paid for all of them. The mum of 2 also revealed that the first wedding she attended following her divorce was her brother's, as she recalled. "It was mad, but I didn't want to be upset for myself because I was like, Kerry, this isn't about you. This is about Russell and Cerise, and they've been together for 18 years. The Crown actress Samantha recently launched a podcast with the star chatting to the likes of writer Hajar Woodland and singer Sarah Duchovny. Kerry is best known for her roles in Him and Her and has appeared in shows including 2 Pints of Lager and a Packet of Crisps, Doc Martin and Drunk History. Mate, your brother should have directed you to the best way to divorce, and that would have kept the fees down. Wouldn't it be wonderful if family members said, I'll pay for the mediation? That would be a really good culture shift. So now let's get ready for our expert intro. And we've got James coming in any second now. He's just going to turn his camera on and off to refresh it so that we can see him. If you can just do that for us, James. It's having a little glitch today and it's hiding you from us. We don't want to look at an S, we want to look at you.
Can you see me now, Susan?
If you put it back on again. Are you in? Not yet. No. Don't seem to be there. Give it one more go. Otherwise, we'll just have to do an audio version. But it was so nice looking at you earlier, so I'd love to give it another go. Keep giving it a go, and we'll just carry on from here. And then if you appear, all the better.
Sure.
So what I wanted to ask you first, because you're like the boss in the UK of Our Family Wizard. So a lot of people here won't know what Our Family Wizard is. So would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our Family Wizard is a co-parenting communication app. It's a place for parents to communicate through during, before, after any time during the process of divorce or separation. It's available on pretty much anything with access to the internet, whether that be a phone, a laptop, a desktop, a tablet. That's where it can be used. It has a whole suite of features dedicated to help parents with their communication. It has a message board, which is a dedicated system to communicate with parents, and within that is something called Tone Meter, which assists with communication, and it promotes positive language. A shared calendar where they can put in a schedule for the child, an expense log where they can track reimbursements, an info bank to store information, and a journal to track pictures and memories and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty big program.
It certainly is, and you'll be glad to know that we can now see you. So welcome in vision. The Tone Meter, you have got to tell us what that is.
We describe Tone Meter as like a spell check for your emotions. So if you're writing a message, it's similar to email. It'll let you know when a message was read, when it was written, and that information is always stored permanently, can't be changed, can't be edited. But the difference is with Tone Meter, when you're writing a message, it will alert you of any potentially inflammatory language. So if you write something when you're writing your message to your ex or whoever it might be, and you write something that could be deemed as potentially harmful or emotional or might upset the other parent, it alerts you and it flags that particular phrase and lets you know what kind of emotional damage it could potentially do. Now, the recipient parent does not then receive a message saying they've received a harmful message. It doesn't stop you from sending that message as it already is, and it doesn't offer alternative phrase to change into something else. It just gives you an initial opportunity to think about what you've written before then choosing whether you want to send it or not.
I cannot imagine how many parents must be thinking, oh, I wish not just that my spouse or my ex had used it, but so it's just brilliant to have that little bit of reflection time before we launch in, because it's often our tone that causes so much trouble, even if we're not deliberately trying to be difficult with the other person. So how did you come to get involved in this? I mean, it's and also that's a little bit about because when I first came across Our Family Wizard, it seemed to be very much an American thing, but you're very well established here now, and also in the courts as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So it started back in 2001 in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, America. So it's been going for nearly 20 years. In that time, it's been court-ordered all around America. Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie are on it. It's sort of synonymous with family law out in the States. We built a UK separate version about four and a half years ago, and I started working for the company about 18 months ago or so. My personal background's in education. I was a teacher. I've seen too many times, children struggling and parents struggling, and I thought there's got to be something out there to help these parents better. And along came across Our Family Wizard, which was trying to sort of break into the UK market, and here I am. So that's my role as an educator, to train professionals, teach them how our family wizard works, and then if they think it's useful, they introduce it with the families. And it is being introduced into the courts. We have a number of judges who order our family wizard every single week all around the country, but it's also being introduced in various different formats within family law, I suppose. So mediators, mental health practitioners, therapists, psychiatrists, coaches, if they're working with the family, they're the ones who we want to promote our family wizard to and say, here's the benefits, here's how it can help. And we're really hoping that we can promote that positive communication. And that's the end goal here, to help those parents and to mostly help those children and find ways to move forward in healthy ways.
That's so brilliant. And I'm just about to launch soon my Best Way to Divorce app. And in that, for people who come in there for the sort of initial free level, they'll get a welcome pack. And in that welcome pack is like, here's our family wizard. Please try it, because it's just, I think, such an essential tool. And what do you think if there were 3 key reasons why a family should try it? I mean, apart from the fact that it's extremely affordable,
Yes.
it's what are the other 3 reasons why people should give it a go? Because there's a lot of blocks around parents and communication, and they go, oh, the other person won't use it. But what happens? Let's start with that. What happens if someone says, oh, my ex, they're never going to use it, or they won't use it? It doesn't stop them using it, does it?
No, absolutely. So there's a couple of ways around that, and it depends what sort of circumstance we're in. If we're in a court situation, then there's an order, or there's a way of consenting and saying, yes, I'm going to use our family wizard. We provide the language for that. But alternatively, if you are really keen to use our family wizard, you can set it up on your own. Add the children, add the grandparents, add the dog walker, the babysitter, and then your ex can join later on once they've seen the benefits of it. So we should hopefully find any circumstance for any sort of situation, any family, to be able to use our family wizard.
And one of the ways, if you've got arguments about, particularly say one parent saying they're not getting enough access, if you have set up our family wizard with the calendar and you've got all these different options of when they can spend time with the children, if they've chosen not to go in and respond, it kind of busts that, if that is true, that's what's happening, I should say. But on those rare occasions, that actually would bust that wide open, wouldn't it?
That's right. Everything's recorded. So, let's say, for example, you've gone onto the calendar, you've put in your parenting schedule, and you've put in a new event for your child. And for some reason, that event, it needs to be changed. They need to change the time, or even it gets cancelled. That information will be recorded. So if a parent does go on and delete or change anything, we'll always have that information. So, if one person goes on and adds all sorts of things and then realizes actually half of them aren't useful anymore, they can remove them, but we will have that recorded history of their activity. So everything that is in with our family wizard is always time-stamped, always recorded permanently, and always accurate. So we know that is true up to a certain date and time. That's what sets us apart from other programs. I'm sure, Susie, everyone's using WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, all these different communication platforms. One, there are so many different places for those communications happen. It gets lost, it gets caught up. And 2, it's so very easy to manipulate and change that information. It's scary that we live in a world where that's possible, but unfortunately that's where we are now, and our family wizard keeps all that information secure, and it also keeps it in one place. So your messages, your calendar, everything that you do towards your child is always in one place. We're hoping that will make the parents' lives a bit easier.
And finally, one of the things, am I right in saying that if you've got a contentious relationship, which is definitely they should be using this platform,
Sure.
And there are issues around, perhaps you've got one parent who's just not being very helpful, and you've laid it all out and you're using it yourself and you're keeping that space open for them, it is actually possible that even if you don't agree in mediation for them to participate using that platform, that a judge, if things do go to court, particularly around the children, could then say, look, this is clearly the best way for you to communicate, especially if you've been a bit rude, and your spouse doesn't want emails from you or anymore, or texts. This is what you should do. And I certainly know personally someone I recommended that they used it in that way, had a judge in the UK tell her spouse, you're going to use this. Is that something you've had happen quite a few times now?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that's growing as we grow in the UK and we sort of become more familiar with more judges around the UK. It's an absolute privilege for me to speak to all these judges and introduce the program to them. And there's such a sort of wide way of how our family wizard is introduced in that court scenario. But yes, absolutely, we've seen it many times where the judge themselves has physically ordered that the parents will communicate through our family wizard exclusively. If you're listening and you think that might be useful, get your professional, your family law professional, whoever that might be, your mediator, your coach, your solicitor, get in touch with me. I can send them across that document that we provide. It's a draft order template that was written for us by a judge as part of the Children Act 2020. So it saves everyone having to spend hours searching the internet for the right document or rewriting it all. We've got that all ready to go. Again, hopefully there to try and help those parents.
Or just pop into the Best Way to Divorce Facebook group and say, Susie, can you get me what he was talking about, and I'll get you sorted. Brilliant. Thank you so much, James, and hopefully get you on again at a later date. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very much for having me, Susie.
Brilliant. I love the way technology can be used to totally revolutionise the way that families talk to each other. So we've got a nice, short, snappy bit of learning today. But today I would just briefly, I've been working on a little PDF which download, which includes some things to think about when you're getting divorced, and I thought I'd take a little extract because it's one that always makes me smile. Right, this is the one that is about, is your ex an idiot? And this is a question I actually do ask people, to be honest, because it's and I've actually made a little animated video on that very subject. I've probably played on the show at some point or other. But it is a good question to ask yourself, and in all seriousness, this is why. So if you find that you're starting to talk about your ex like this, oh, they're a narcissist, they're so controlling, or mediation won't work with them, they just won't do it. Or maybe it's they'll use the courts because they're really smart with money and they know how to win. Now, these are things that I do quite often hear from people. But the thing to remember is they don't know what you're learning. When you're learning about different ways, more peaceful ways to divorce, more great strategies, things like our family wizard, they don't know all that. And you need to remember that you're the one who's now kind of holding the space, holding it all together. And you only need one of you to stay really sane and to know what's going on, to completely revolutionise how the process goes. So if you think they won't use mediation or all the other tools in the peace toolbox, what I'd ask is don't decide for them. Don't do it on their behalf, because the truth is they'd have to be stupid to ignore peaceful options that save them time, money and stress. And some of those options currently both of you may not yet even know exist. So keep the options open for both of you, because you wouldn't have married an idiot, would you? Now we're moving into our shared story section. And welcome Ruth, who is not going to be sharing her own raw and torrid past. She's going to be sharing another person's story on their behalf so that we can benefit from it, because we learn so much from shared stories. How are you doing, Ruth?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you, Susie. How are you?
Very well. And one of the things that I should just need to remind everyone who hasn't already met Ruth through this show or the workshops that we run, Ruth is an expert at helping people deal with coercive and controlling relationships. So she's probably got some very interesting stories to tell. So what's your shared story to share with us today, Ruth?
Well, this evening I'm going to talk about a young lady who lives over in Northern Ireland, and she and her ex-partner share a lovely son who's just about 18 months old. And her partner he falls into that category of being coercive and controlling. And so it's, I've been working with this young lady to help her to know how to understand what he's trying to do and how to be able to handle it in a way that comes across as peacefully as possible, but gets her the outcomes. Now, the particular incident that I want to talk about this evening, it falls in well with what we've been hearing from James and what you were just saying about the toolbox there, Susie, as well. Because sometimes that little element of control can actually be quite a subtle one. So it's one of those things where it's not so overt that you could go, oh my God, the way they're behaving. But it's a subtle one that you almost think to yourself, should I really be complaining about this? Is he just trying to push the boundaries here? And basically what was happening here, each time that her ex-partner was bringing the son back to the house, he would then spend about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, rolling round on the front lawn, having great fun with the little one, which is lovely to see. But, of course, the young lady that I'm working with, she's waiting there at the doorway. And then when she eventually has to say, look, he needs to come inside now. By this time, the little one is completely wound up, overexcited, and then arms are stretched out. Don't want to leave, Daddy. So you can imagine, how this is making her feel, because she doesn't want to stop her son having fun. But at the same time, she feels like those boundaries are being pushed. And the truth of the matter is, those boundaries are being pushed. All of that is like a big display that he's putting on, a display of his, how much his son loves him. So that's all being put on for her benefit. A big display for the neighbours all around to see. Look at this great guy. How could she possibly want to be away from this great guy? So what we worked on was how she could really be firm about the boundaries that she needed to put in place and not to feel guilty about doing that. So you recognize what that person is doing, even if it's something that seems subtle and potentially harmless. But that's the clue, that you've got to really get those boundaries firmly in place. And since she's been trying that, things have been much, much better.
Could you give one example of one of the things that she did to achieve that?
So one of the things that she did was that as he got out of the car, that she went directly to the car and collected her son from the car. So there was no bringing him to the door or, going through this rigmarole of rolling around on the lawn in front of the house. So that was one example. The other example was to be able to state very calmly, but very firmly, right, thank you very much, and take the child straight inside the house, so that she wasn't engaging in any kind of debate with him. That's the thing. You've got to know very clearly what it is that's going on, why it's not acceptable to you, and then just very calmly but firmly put that in place.
That's fabulous. I love hearing stories like that, and it just shows that with the right techniques you can turn it all around. Thank you.
You definitely can. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are in the Secret Divorce group and also the Facebook group, you'll find Ruth in there. If you call out for her, she will respond. She's incredibly helpful to all of the members of the groups. See you soon, Ruth. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie.
Oh, I love a good story. So now we're going to have a very quick roundup, and then we've got Marion, whom we can all relax and have a lovely healing. So good news with the workshop. Wellers Family Law have agreed to sponsor more events, in fact 3 more. So we're going to fix a date soon, probably about the middle of January, but you'll be able to get involved with the workshop and get information that kind of goes as part of the package prior to that. We won't make you wait all the way to January just to get any help, but that will be hopefully in the next couple of weeks be fully announced. And now we're going to prepare for healing. Get ready for Marion. Welcome, Marion. Looking very
Hello,
Atmospheric
Susie.
there in the gloom. You've got a big lovely white smile though. So Marion, you're going to, just for those who didn't meet you last time round, give us
Yes.
a little taster. I know you do many wonderful things, but in your role as a healer, give us a little bit of preparation for what's coming.
So my one of my introductions is that I used to program computers and now I deprogram people. And one of the ways to assist the deprogramming is to help people to know what it feels like to feel safe and to feel a safe container and a safe boundary. So that was a theme tonight. So I thought that would be a nice container to begin to focus on, to bring some attention to. A boundary around you, yeah?
That sounds absolutely perfect. So I'm going to play gentle music underneath, and I'm going to turn off my microphone so I can't disturb you in any way. And we've got 10 minutes of bliss, everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. So as the music begins, just allow yourself to begin to turn your attention inwards. And when you're ready to, you can close your eyes. But make sure you're feeling settled. So when you have the eyes closed, you notice that there's a sense of safety in that settling. So things can settle down when they feel safe. And becoming aware of the boundary of your body. So notice the connection with your bum on the seat. And then I want you to imagine the space between your bum and the seat. So right down into millimeter or nanometer. Tiny space between your bum and the seat. And then really let that contact between you and the rest of your body resting down. Notice the weight of your head. Let your neck relax so that your head can begin to become a little freer, a little looser. You might need to make some movements, some adjustments. You might even want to shake like a cat. It's whatever you feel your body wants to do, just feel into it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Feeling into your own boundary, this skin surface, and how it feels. So notice the way the skin feels on your shoulders, across the front of your chest. How does the skin feel there? And notice how the skin feels on your back, across your shoulders, and your shoulder blades. And become aware as you're paying attention to this boundary, this skin that you're in. A little attention, it begins to relax. Or some parts call your attention. But just notice what unfolds as you pay attention to this skin that you're in. Noticing how it feels around the waist. And down the arms and into the hands. So just this melting sensation beginning to emerge as you're paying attention to the skin and allowing it to relax. Feeling comfortable and safe and settling down. Feeling your legs settling in your feet, becoming heavier. And it's all just happening as you pay attention. And as the skin softens like this, it becomes more sensitive. And if you imagine the aura softening, even that nanometer of space around you softening, it means you become more receptive. more aware of what's around you. And it actually helps to keep you safe. It opens up your awareness. And then allow your attention from the space around you to move in to the space just beneath the surface of the skin. Can you connect to the whole space just beneath the surface of your skin on your whole body, like a suit? And then sink in to the center, slowly, slowly sinking in, past the muscles and the bones, the organs, into the center. And imagine in the center a star, a little star. And it's very small, so you can zoom in. And as you zoom in, notice the twinkle and the colours. You keep zooming in. And the star's so bright. Notice that brightness now passes you, through you, beyond you, back outside, through the skin. That brightness is shining. And the softer your boundary, the more established your boundary, because it's where you connect to, then the easier it is to communicate. And the easier it is for this light to shine out. And if you're not smiling already, just allow a gentle smile to play with your lips. And then bring yourself back to the body and its fingers and its nose and its toes and its shoulder blades. Have a stretch, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Marion. That was blissful. I loved it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. And of course, you will be putting links to wonderful things on the post when I tag you in on the show.
Yes.
Good. I look forward to it. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Susie.
My pleasure. So, everybody, on the battlefield of family separation, in the war of divorce, always make peace your weapon of choice.